Hey everyone, welcome back. If you caught my last video, you saw me unbox and set up my new Yarbo modular yard robot. Well, Mother Nature delivered a perfect test. We got about 6 inches of snowfall on March 4th here in Maple Grove, Minnesota, which is pretty typical for us. We average about 46 inches of snow a year. So I was really excited to put the Yarbo to the test with real Minnesota winter weather conditions. In this follow-up, I'll walk you through my first 24 hours with Yarbo dealing with that snowfall. So grab a hot chocolate and let's see how it went. So just as a quick refresher, Yarbo is an all-season robot that can mow your yard, blow leaves, and snowblow your driveway. I had it set up with the snowblower attachment in the last video, and now it's time to see it in action with real snow. The conditions? We've got about 6 inches of fresh snow. A bit fluffy on top, but getting heavier where it started to pack down, a slushy bottom with that rain mix. Basically, ideal testing conditions to answer the big question. Does this robot snowblower actually work when it counts? Alright guys, it's the first run. It's about 10 p.m. The snow had just stopped. I sent Yarbo out to clear the driveway. This initial run lasted 31 and a half minutes. During that time, it covered our driveway of about 1,448 square feet. During that time, it used about 27% of the battery, so not too shabby for the first go. It basically focused on my driveway since I hadn't mapped out the sidewalks or the front entry in the app yet. That's on me. I was so eager, I just wanted to get going, so I forgot to add those zones in. I'll make sure to do that for the next time it snows. The driveway itself was no problem for Yarbo. It methodically worked through the snow, leaving behind clean tracks. I noticed the snowblower module threw the snow a good distance off to the side, so no big piles were left on the driveway. An interesting thing happened as I was filming. When I would get too close, the Yarbo would suddenly pause, and it would say, "Person detected." Anytime I got too near, I had to back up and let it resume. I did find out later, while watching other YouTube videos, that apparently there is a setting. I think it's important to leave that on. I'm impressed with the safety capabilities. The idea that we're going to run this autonomously. I do have like neighbors and kids and stuff that will be coming down the sidewalk. And of course, anything that's autonomous like this is going to attract attention. So I don't want to be liable with somebody that gets hit by it if they don't get out of the way. So I do like that it stopped. So pro tip, if you get one, don't hover right in its face while it's working, or it might politely wait for you to back off. After it finished clearing the driveway, Yarbo went into auto dock itself. This part took about 7 minutes. It trundled back across the yard, lined itself up with the docking station, and it clicked, it docked. But watching it find its way home in the dark was like seeing a Roomba trying to finish a cleaning cycle, just on a much larger scale. I've included some footage from my security camera and a garage cam so you can see the docking process. It's pretty cool and a little bit surreal. Fast forward to the next morning, and we had a bit of overnight drift, and the plows left some extra snow at the end of the driveway. I scheduled the Yarbo for another run at 7 a.m. because who doesn't love waking up to a freshly cleared driveway, right? It went for about 44 minutes and used roughly 45% of the battery. This is understandable. There was a lot of new snow and some wind-blown stuff, so the machine had to work harder and longer. I did find the Yarbo stuck once on its first run. It had gotten itself hung up on a thicker patch of snow. And honestly, that could happen with any snowblower. I've wrestled with that same issue with like our Ego before, if it's just too packed. Aside from that, the 7 a.m. clearing went well. The wind was still whipping the snow around, which made filming tricky. A couple of shots have snow blasting the camera lens. I did capture the Yarbo from a bunch of different angles to give you guys a better look. From the porch view, the side of the driveway, out in the street, you name it. I was like the paparazzi of snowblowers out there. After the 7 a.m. pass, the sun started to peek out and a bit more snow blew off the roof. So I ran the Yarbo again at 10 a.m. to grab the last of the remnants and widen this clearance. That run lasted about 40 minutes and used 33% of the battery. Yarbo did get stuck one more time, this time right up against the garage where it juts out a little. It seems I hadn't perfectly mapped the space out. All I had to do was back it up and then move it forward again. I was able to watch on the app and use our security camera to do the navigation without leaving the couch. The lesson I learned is that I need to tweak the map and give that garage corner a little bit wider area. A few minutes on the app adjusting the boundary should prevent that in the future. Aside from that hiccup, the 10 a.m. run cleaned everything nicely and Yarbo found its way back to the dock automatically again. By late morning, my driveway was looking like it hadn't snowed at all. Meanwhile, I'm still in my pajamas, sipping a hot chocolate, laying on the couch. This is the life. Now, one thing I was really curious and a bit anxious about was the sidewalk in front of my house. I hadn't included it in the autonomous route yet, but I figured I'd test manually driving the robot snowblower to clear the sidewalk. For science, right? So I fired up the Yarbo app on my phone, switched to manual drive mode, and used the on-screen joystick to steer Yarbo from my driveway onto the public sidewalk. At first it was fun, a high-tech RC snow tank, right? I drove it about 2 houses down the block, plowing through the sidewalk snow, but I quickly discovered this was getting tough. That sidewalk snow wasn't fresh powder. It was deep, it was a bit compact, and it had some ice chunks. Thanks to the street plow overspray and people walking on it. Yarbo really struggled in these conditions. The tracks would spin occasionally and the blower was biting off a bit more than it could chew. About 50 yards out, it basically bogged down. I had to wrestle with the controls a little bit to try and wiggle it free, and eventually it just helped pull it along and get the snow out of its way. In the end, I managed to clear the sidewalk in front of my place, but going further was a no-go. The snow was just too heavily packed for the robot to handle beyond that. In hindsight, a couple of things. I definitely need to map the sidewalk out properly in the app next time, or use the plow attachment from there. I should have used the included physical controller instead of my phone. Yarbo actually comes with a dedicated controller, kind of like a gamepad, which offers finer control. Trying to do it on my phone with cold fingers while monitoring the robot was not ideal. So note to self and anyone watching, if you need to manually guide the Yarbo through a really rough spot, grab that controller for better responsiveness and leave your gloves on. I checked online and other Yarbo users reported that very deep or compact snow can cause it to get stuck. In fact, the official specs note it's meant to handle packed snow up to about 4 inches thick. The sidewalk had more than that, so I was pushing it outside its comfort zone. Good to know its limits. Light to moderate snow on flat areas, easy. But a foot of crusty, plowed sidewalk snow, that might need a little human touch or the plow blade attachment. So after giving Yarbo and myself a short break, it was time for one more experiment. Yarbo not only snow blows, it also has a snow plow attachment. So around lunchtime, I swapped out the snowblower module for the plow. The swap is pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of latches, and there you go. It's a bulldozer. So I set those Yarbo out on another run just to plow the driveway and get it right down to the asphalt. I really wanted to see how it would handle pushing the snow versus blowing it. This plow test took about 59 minutes in total, basically nearing an hour of cruising back and forth. The crazy part is it only used 19% of the battery for that whole hour. And pushing the snow requires a lot less power than running a 2-stage blower auger, apparently. And you could tell that it was quieter and it just sipped power the whole time. Despite the low power draw, it did a great job. As you can see, the plow blade scraped right down to the asphalt in most places, clearing that last layer of snow that sometimes the blower can leave behind. In some ways, the driveway looked cleaner after plowing than snowblowing. I was pretty impressed seeing the actual bare pavement and nice, neat banks of snow along the sides. One challenge remained, the wind. It was still gusty around noon, and as I was recording the plow test, a strong wind actually tipped over my tripod and the camera, hitting the sky. Fortunately, the camera survived the faceplant into the snowbank, and through all this, Yarbo just kept calmly doing its thing. By the time it finished and headed back, I noticed that the auto docking was now rock solid. In fact, the last 3 runs, both the morning runs and this plow run, all ended with Yarbo finding its dock flawlessly on its own. It seems once you dial in the docking position and keep the path relatively clear, it has no trouble homing in. It does a pass forward and back to clear the charger. Seeing it work equally as well in the daylight was reassuring. The sensors and the GPS don't care if it's day or night. So after a day of testing the Yarbo in real winter conditions, what's the verdict? Honestly, I'm pretty impressed, with a few caveats. Let's break it down. First of all, time saved. For me, the biggest win was the time and effort saved. Maple Grove gets around 46 inches of snow in average winter, which comes in many snowfalls. If I typically have to clear the snow, say a dozen or times each season, and each session might take me, let's say 30 to 60 minutes by hand or with a Ego snowblower, that adds up to about 10 or more hours every winter spent dealing with snow. With the Yarbo, I can get most of that time back. In just these first 24 hours, I had it running 3 hours total across the different runs. Granted, I was testing it, and most of the time I was indoors, and when I was outside, it was just, to get the footage for the shot. Aside from a couple of quick interventions, I wasn't out there shoveling or pushing a heavy machine around. And over an entire winter, that convenience is golden. Instead of waking up at the crack of dawn to shovel before work, I can let the robot handle it and catch a few extra Z's. For tech-savvy homeowners like me, this is the dream. Automating the boring chores so we can spend more time on better things. Or, nothing at all. Now let's consider the cost. We have to talk about cost and value. A device like Yarbo isn't cheap. The whole setup with the core unit, snowblower module, docking station, etc. would run $5,000 retail, or $7,000 if you get the full package. Now that's a serious investment. So I asked myself, does it financially make sense versus traditional snow removal? Let's do a little bit of math. Hiring a professional snow removal service in our area can cost roughly $40 per visit with a standard driveway. So sometimes more if you have a larger property or heavy snow, or they'll lock you into a seasonal contract. Around here, that would be between $300 and $800 for the winter. So depending on your driveway size and the amount of snowfall, over let's say, call it 5 years, you might easily spend a few $1,000s on plowing services. And that's not even counting the value of your time if you DIY with a snowblower. So in a way, if Yarbo holds up for several winters and also replaces my lawn service in the summer, it could pay for itself in the long run. Plus, it's hard to put a price tag on the convenience of not stressing about snow at 5 a.m. or rushing home to clear the driveway. Of course, you also have to factor in the upfront cost of a Yarbo versus a traditional snowblower, which could be $1,000 or more for a good 2-stage blower. Yarbo is still pricier by a margin, but again, it's doing double or triple duty with the snow and the lawn and the leaves removal. For a tech enthusiast who values convenience, I'd say it's a justifiable splurge. But it is a splurge. After a day of use in moderate snow, here's my big takeaways. Convenience and autonomy. Well, I stayed warm indoors while Yarbo did the work. Being able to schedule snow clearing or run it on demand without physically pushing a blower is amazing. It even docked itself when it was done. This is peak lazy homeowner tech, and I love it. It's not a one-trick pony either. The fact that the same robot will mow my lawn come spring and blow leaves in the fall is a huge plus. Instead of 3 different machines, I have one platform for all seasons. That really helps justify the cost in my mind. When testing it out here in Minnesota, the Yarbo was able to handle 6 inches of snow like a champ. It chewed through the driveway accumulation. It threw the snow far enough. It's built with tank-like treads, so it handles steep grades and uneven terrain solidly. It's rated for slopes up to about 20 degrees in snowblowing mode, which covers my needs for sure. So for most snowfalls and typical driveway situations, it gets the job done well. Let's look at some of the cons. It does struggle with deep, heavy snow. As we saw on the packed sidewalk, Yarbo can hit its limit with very deep or compact snow. Wet, heavy snow or the dense stuff at the end of the driveway might occasionally jam it up or require a manual assist. I've read other users say the same. The robot can get stuck if the snow is too much. It's not magic. There will be some of those extreme cases where old-fashioned shoveling or snowblower muscle is needed. If you regularly get blizzards or heavy wet snow dumps, you may need to manage expectations. This is cutting-edge tech, and it's not as simple as unboxing a Roomba. The setup and the mapping take a bit of time. My first video covers that. I had to adjust my maps, like around the garage edge, and I will luckily fine-tune them even more. The app is pretty good, but I encountered minor connectivity hiccups once or twice while trying to manually drive, and it's not completely hands-off every single time just yet. Think of it as a first-gen experience. Some minor quirks to work through, but nothing deal-breaking for me. Overall, I'm happy with Yarbo's performance in its first real test. It delivered on the convenience and did 90% of the work without me breaking a sweat. The issues I had encountered, like getting stuck that one time or missing a bit on the map, are all fixable and manageable with a little user input. Now, this is just the beginning. I've tested the snowblower and the plow in moderate snowfall. I'm really curious to see how it handles a huge snowstorm. You'll bet I'll film that when it happens. Be sure to subscribe and find out if this same robot can keep my lawn trimmed in April and May. So far, Yarbo has passed the winter test in my book. I'm excited to keep putting it through its paces year-round. Well, thanks for coming along on this 24-hour test with me. If you have any questions I didn't cover, drop them in the comments. I'll be answering them, and I'm curious to hear what you all think. Could Yarbo handle your winters? Would you trust a robot to do your snow removal? Let me know down below. And if you like this real-world review, or you're just into smart home tech, making life easier, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. I've got more cool projects and updates along the way, including that lawnmower test, of course. Until next time, stay warm.